Well, it seems Marvel preview season is upon us, and in order for me not to despair about the fact that my favorite game now comes with ads, I would like to instead explore some of my favorite pieces of art for Magic the Gathering. We're going to start off with what I think are some of the best pieces of art in Magic the Gathering for the color black. Let's get started.
Distraction makers.
This is going to be basically a top 10, but it's not really ranked. It's just sort of 10 pieces of art that I felt particularly strongly about, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about them. Let's get started with number 10. And number 10 is a card by artist Carl Critchlow. Probably will recognize some of his earlier cards like Unworthy Dead. Funny enough, was censored when the game was brought to China. I don't know if China still cares about this as much as they once did, but they basically didn't want anybody to show bones, I think for religious purposes. The image that I want to talk about today, specifically for black cards, is the card Innocent Blood. Innocent Blood is a sorcery. It costs 1 black, and it says each player sacrifices a creature. And this is a piece of artwork that I've appreciated for a long time. I actually started playing right when Torment came out. This card was in the metagame at the time. I love that it's just such a simple effect, costs 1 black, but art-wise, this is what I would consider one of the more disturbing pieces of art in Magic the Gathering. One thing I do really appreciate about this piece of art is its use of value control. There's several, I think, focal points in the image. We can kind of see a harsh silhouette in the far right. It looks like one zombie kind of sticking his head out a little bit from the pile. But then the central zombie figure, I think, is quite striking. And that, I think, is sort of the first read. And the second read is probably either the zombie off on the right or the one that is directly to the left of our central figure. And then, I think, maybe tertiary, you start to realize that they're carrying a body, which I think is something that's so interesting about this piece. I really appreciate when a piece of art tells a story, but also that there's a lot to unpack as you're looking at an image. Maybe at first glance, it feels like, oh, I see, there's like a pile of zombies or whatever. But once you realize that the card is called Innocent Blood, and these zombies are carrying a new corpse, you can sort of imagine the story unfolding in your mind. So that's number 10, Innocent Blood by Carl Critchlow. At number 9, we have one of my favorite artists of all time. And the only reason that he's not higher up on this list is because he didn't really do all that much work for Magic the Gathering. Really in kind of the early days around... he was mostly in sort of the second edition Dungeons and Dragons and kind of concepted the look and feel for the setting Dark Sun. And of course, the artist that I am talking about is Brahm. Brahm is a very well-known artist outside of Magic the Gathering. He did a few cards early on. Brahm popularly might be best known for the fact that he did the cover art for the game Diablo 2. He also did some concept work and character designs for Diablo 3 and 4. And one of the most incredible artists to come out of sort of the second edition D&D, late 80s, early 90s fantasy movement. And even today, he has images on his website that depict Elric of Manibene, who was a very iconic character for that sort of early 90s anti-hero type character, in contrast to Conan the Barbarian, as depicted by Frank Frazetta. So the piece that I would like to highlight for Brahm from Magic the Gathering is Lord of the Undead. Lord of the Undead costs 1 generic mana and 2 black mana. It's a creature lord. I think it's a zombie lord now. All zombies get +1/+1, and I think the errata is all other zombies get +1/+1. Pay 1 generic and 1 black, tap this creature. Return target zombie card from your graveyard to your hand, and it is a 2/2. But the reason why I love this art so much is I think that it captures what Brahm is best at. He loves these central figure compositions that have fantastic silhouettes that are easy to read at a distance, carried this throughout his work. And I think he was an early master of this type of painting. This type of idea comes from sort of the N.C. Wyeth into sort of the Frank Frazetta school of thought with the sort of golden age of book illustrators. Brahm, interestingly enough, I think in a similar way that Frank Frazetta depicts Conan the Barbarian, I think Brahm depicts Elric. And that those iconic characters from that era, I think, embody both of their sort of visions of fantasy. Brahms' style is that, is more in that subtlety and in the macabre. And I think that those characters specifically, and Drownu Lichlord, which I think in some ways is an homage to Elric, this is one of Brahms', I think, best pieces, especially at the time. Moving on to number 8, we have Chris Seaman. And the piece that I've chosen specifically for Chris Seaman for this list is the Meathook Massacre. Meathook Massacre costs X generic mana and 2 black. It is a legendary enchantment. When the Meathook Massacre enters, each creature gets -X until end of turn. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you gain 1 life. Not only do I love this piece of art itself, I find it a fantastic homage to Texas Chainsaw Massacre with the meat hooks and things, which is clearly what this is referencing in the Innistrad set this came out in. But the image itself does a fantastic job of a few things. One is that it tells a great story, which is one of the things I mentioned with Innocent Blood, but also it uses the hand that is impaled by the hook close to the viewer here to create kind of a frame within a frame that draws our eye to the figure, the beast, whatever it is in the background with a cleaver that is hacking apart the body parts and piercing them with these hooks. Definitely one of my favorite pieces of art in the game. Chris Seaman also has a ton of other art that is fantastic. And he also has this line of fine art prints that he sells at conventions. I think it's called Cameo Creeps, something like that. I'll put it on the screen. Super cool stuff. It's like miniature original paintings that you can collect. Really cool. Really cool. Coming in at number 7, we have another of one of my favorite artists, Dominic Mayer. Dominic has been a favorite of mine in recent years. His style is very striking, but it's also his shape design. Like, he is a master of mixing graphic with realism, the abstract with realism, and developing some of the most iconic pieces of art, I think, in the game today. But the piece of art that I'm particularly interested in for this list is the card Hopeless Nightmare. Hopeless Nightmare costs 1 black. It is an enchantment. It says, when Hopeless Nightmare enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card and loses 2 life. When Hopeless Nightmare is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, scry 2. And then you can pay 2 generic mana and 1 black to sacrifice Hopeless Nightmare. With his shape design aesthetic, his abstract meets realism aesthetic, which there are a few other artists that do this as well, Scott Fisher being one of them. Both of them are fantastic at combining the graphic and the real. One of the more difficult things to depict in Magic is spell-like effects. Things that depict a spell in action or something that's supposed to represent the ethereal. And Hopeless Nightmare gets this is a fantastic example of how to do this. Number 6, we have RK Post. RK Post has a myriad of iconic cards in Magic the Gathering, so it was very difficult for me to choose just one of them. But for this list, we're going to be looking at Avatar of Woe. Avatar of Woe costs 6 generic mana and 2 black mana. It is a creature avatar. Its rules text is, if there are 10 or more creature cards total in all graveyards, Avatar of Woe costs 6 less to play. Avatar of Woe can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and or black creatures, which I think is the original wording of Fear. It has tap, destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated. And it is a 6/5. This is back at the point in time where I guess Wizards of the Coast was very afraid of the regeneration ability and wanted to make sure that black could always kill things that could regenerate. So almost any destroy effect came with the clause of it can't be regenerated. The art itself here, it depicts what I think is one of the more iconic character designs in Magic the Gathering of the Avatar of Woe. Fantastic shape language used in the headdress of the avatar, and sort of mirroring that scythe shape in the weapon she's carrying. This also sort of creeps more into sort of like Dominic's territory a little bit, with the graphic mixed with the real, where the background is sort of this flattened out abstract image of a crying woman, I think, just sort of repeated. And it works at a glance as sort of just an interesting texture in the background, but then again, on further inspection, you realize that it is, in fact, another figure, and I think that's a really interesting touch. Okay, next at number 5, we have Vincent Pros. Vincent Pros has created some extremely iconic cards in Magic the Gathering, namely Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath would be one most people would recognize, but also Hogak. Their art strikes fear through what I think is the grotesque body horror, Cronenbergian depictions of these evil creatures. I wanted to highlight this other card. This isn't the card I'm picking, but Spectre Scythe has such an interesting, it's worth such an interesting analysis when you see the Spectre itself and then zoom in on it to realize that it's made up of a bunch of cobbled together bodies. But the card I am choosing today is Diregraph Colossus. Diregraph Colossus costs 2 generic mana and 1 black. It is a zombie giant. Diregraph Colossus enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each zombie card in your graveyard. Whenever you cast a zombie spell, create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token, and it is a 2/2. And the reason why I'm choosing this card is that I do think that Vincent was exploring this idea of creating new shapes and figures out of a collection of bodies. And Diregraph Colossus to me feels like where this this disturbing imagery is perfected, I suppose. The only drawback I think here with this image is that on the card itself, it is a bit difficult to see exactly what is going on with this image, but when we zoom in and we can see the image in all its glory, you can see that every piece of it is made out of different bodies that have been strapped together and bound in this metal machinery, almost Wicker Man style, and the hands, even depicting down to the fingernails, are actually the back of a zombie's head. And I find this image to be interesting and disturbing, and I think kind of the climax of this exploration by Vincent of the cobbling together of body horror into a colossus. Okay, we're up to number 4, and this artist in particular is probably not best known for his macabre or black artwork, although he's done quite a few images, but I don't know if this is the first thing you might think of with this artist. His style, he's very well known for this glowing, radiant look, where there's a figure silhouetted by a glowing, what was called rim lighting, where the light source is directly behind the figure, and subsurface scattering is kind of making it so that there's this glow about the figure. The artist I'm talking about is Rahn. One of the black card images, is not the one that I'm highlighting today, but descriptive of what I'm talking about, Shieldred the Apocalypse. And this, I think, is more reminiscent of Rahn's usual style. But the card that I am picking for today's list is Mikaeus the Unhallowed. So Mikaeus the Unhallowed costs 3 generic mana and 3 black mana. It is a legendary creature, zombie cleric. It has Intimidate. It also says, whenever a human deals damage to you, destroy it. Other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying, and it is a 5/5. The artwork itself does again, a fantastic job capturing that silhouette, which is extremely important when you're painting this small. It helps to make it so that the viewer can recognize these images at a glance and really remember the image that is corresponding to the card. I love this image of Mikaeus exiting this broken tomb after he's been sort of turned into a zombie. And this is sort of the second coming, I guess, of this character. And when he is turned into Mikaeus the Unhallowed. Such an iconic character, not only in Magic, but also this image does him justice. All right, so we're moving into our top 3, and any of these images can be ranked anywhere here. This is not necessarily sort of a definitive list or ranking of which art is better than others. It's just, this is the order that I wanted to talk about them in. Okay, moving into number 3. At number 3, we have Greg Staples. Greg Staples is just unbelievable. He's done some of the most iconic pieces of Magic the Gathering, including Sarah, Angel, and Squee. He also has made a exceptionally iconic version of Hypnotic Spectre. This is not the piece that we're talking about today, though. However, I did want to point out that, did you ever take a look at the feet on Hypnotic Spectre? He's got these crazy hand feet. I think they're actually squirrel feet, maybe. Squirrels have such interesting feet. Anyway, but yeah, that image of Hypnotic Spectre is amazing. But the image that I wanted to choose for this list today is Unliving Psychopath. Unliving Psychopath costs 2 generic and 2 black mana. It is a creature zombie assassin. You can pay 1 black mana, and Unliving Psychopath gets +1/-1 until end of turn. You can pay 1 black and tap it to destroy target creature with power less than Unliving Psychopath's power, and it is a 0/4. And this piece in particular by Greg Staples, I think, is just one of his best. The idea of this Unliving Psychopath, I think, is captured perfectly in the energy that's in this piece. The explosive movement of this character captured in a 2D space is so fascinating. It's sort of the subtle use of the texture in the background effectively being speed lines to depict this character charging at you. And just the character design itself is very well executed with these different, body parts and different stages of decay. This helmet coming off of his head and his eyeball flying out of his skull. I think in every possible way, this image embodies the Unliving Psychopath. And number 2, we have another artist that's been creating iconic works for Magic the Gathering for decades. And the artist we are talking about is Izzy. And Izzy has created so many favorites over the years. Sharim the Hegemon, Seaver Exarch, and Greed are just to name a few. But the card we're talking about today is Peer into the Abyss. Peer into the Abyss costs 4 generic mana and 3 black. It is a sorcery, and it says target player draws cards equal to half the number of cards in their library and loses half their life, round up each time. And not only is this one of the most horrifying images that I've seen on a Magic card, it's also an homage to a Salvador Dali piece called The Face of War. And I think that Izzy has done a fantastic job reinterpreting the piece, and this is just one of the most disturbing, not only disturbing pieces of art in Magic the Gathering, but just in dark art fantasy, generally speaking. Okay, before we get to number 1, I just wanted to go over a few honorable mentions. First, I want to give a shout out to Jesper Myrfors, Magic the Gathering's original art director, and his piece, The Fallen. So our last honorable mention here is by Ben Thompson, and this is Chainer's Edict. This image has always stuck with me. It feels so disturbing. It feels the absolute pain and horror in the, I guess, centaur gazelle. I'm not exactly sure. Just the look on their face sells what's about to happen so well. Just absolutely disturbing. And every time I look at this image, I just feel the pain that character is in. And just a masterful, iconic piece of art within the game of Magic. Okay, finally, let's get to our number 1 choice for my favorite piece of art in Magic the Gathering on a black card. This piece was made by Stephen Belladin, who has done lots of iconic pieces, as well as, all the other artists on this list. But the piece of art in particular that I would like to highlight today is the one on Surgical Extraction. And this costs 1 black Phyrexian mana. It is an instant. It says, choose target card in a graveyard other than a basic land. Search its owner's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with the same name as that card and exile them. Then that player shuffles. One thing I want to mention about this card is that the art itself is so striking on the Magic card, but this is not the complete image. The complete image looks like this here, and the piece in Steve Belladin's portfolio is called Surrender. And I think that when we look at this piece in that context, the incredible weight of this image, the surrender of this being, and its spine, its skull, its sense of self being extracted from the back of the figure. Low horizon line and the weight of the sky in this image with just a sliver of the moon or maybe sun in the distance. I don't know. This piece just makes me feel things. There's not a tree. There's not a cloud. There's a whole lot of nothing other than just extraction, right? The extraction of this being's self. Just a phenomenal image that's always stuck with me over the years. All right, so that's it. That's my top 10 images that I think are some of the best original pieces of art in Magic the Gathering for the color black. Share your thoughts in the comments. Let me know your favorite images from other black cards. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can join the Discord. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.